Hey, what's going on, everybody? There goes my camera's flipping over again. Wanted to give you guys the Saturday Sitrep, and I saw a few things that I want to focus on. Normally, what I've done in the past when I get to do a Saturday Sitrep is I'll start, alphabetically by the continents, and I'll go Africa, Eurasia, etc., etc. Today, I want to point at a couple of things that are going on that I think are uniquely interesting this week. The first one is from ABC News, and I'm going to pull up that article right now. And while it thinks thoughts about what it should or should not want to do, here we go. So this is ABC News. UN millions left with no aid as West Africa suffers worst hunger crisis in 10 years. United Nations Food Agency says millions of hungry people in West Africa are left without aid because it is struggling with limited funding to respond to the region's worst hunger crisis in 10 years. This is in Nigeria. So West Africa would be the Atlantic coast of Africa, not the Indian Ocean coast, in case you guys got turned around there. The WROL Food Program said Wednesday that millions of hungry people in West Africa are without aid as the agency struggles with limited funding. Nearly half of the 11.6 million people targeted for food aid during June to August lean season are not receiving any assistance. That warned that hundreds of thousands of people are at risk of joining armed groups, getting married earlier, engaging in survival sex and desperation, prostitution, etc. You guys get the picture. It's a tragic situation. Long before last year's flooding and Russia's war in Ukraine, West Africa was already facing a hunger crisis for more than 27 million hungry people, also brought due to drought and the economic impacts of the Rona. Food insecurity is now affecting 47.2 million people in this year's lean season, so it's almost doubled according to them. Now, again, this is ABC News. Now, this is interesting because we've had an absolutely absurd weather season in the U.S., which is what I can speak to, and Canada. Canada's on freaking fire, which is very odd that so many areas, some of which do not show high risk for fire, are on fire, and they all happen simultaneously in very isolated spots without any lightning. That was just very strange. You run your own conclusions, but the fact that we're now looking at 50 million people that they know of with a hunger issue, okay, they're trying to cover up farmlands with solar panels, but that's arable land, that's agricultural land, yet we're sending billions to a war that we may or may not have involvement in. There seems to be a very odd prioritization of what's going on. And what concerns me is that the more desperate people become in Africa and the third world, the more they're going to migrate, right? And this is not speaking ill of immigrants. This is just people need to feed their kids. So what are they going to do? They're going to go from Africa to Turkey, through Turkey into Europe. And then there's going to be conflict, as always, with the people who are already there versus the people who are coming in. And then you start seeing the violence and the clashes. But the fact that there's so many people without food, it just really bothers me that there's so much food insecurity all of a sudden. And maybe it's just we're noticing it more, and we're, as a community online, we're paying more attention. In the meantime, Sudan, at least 24 civilians reportedly died in fighting in and around the Sudanese capital of Khartoum. This is from Radio Dabanga. That's an independent radio. I think they're in Africa based on the name. I'll pull up that link here in a second so you guys can see it. So you have a lot of political instability to go with the food instability, and they tend to go hand in hand. What's interesting is Sudan was about to sign an agreement with our friends in the Russian Federation, with Vlad, regarding having a naval base in Sudan for Vlad's navy, and shortly thereafter, okay, here it is. Oh, sorry. And I hope that's not backwards when you look at it. But all of a sudden, a civil war breaks out 2 months later. You got to admit the timing's interesting. At the meantime, so China's Xi tells military to deepen war and combat planning. So China's taking a very aggressive posture, and Africa is starving. That's a lot of stress points right there, right? You got one country that's arming up, a very large country, a significant country. At the same time, there's a dozen countries that have food insecurity, civil war instability, and what they're doing, they're moving into Europe, and it's weakening Europe because Europe's trying to deal with that while dealing with Vlad's incursion into Zelensky's place. So there's a lot of overlapping issues, but that food insecurity is very concerning to me. While we're doing that, China's taking a very combative stance. And then there's this article, and I'll pull this up in a second, from India West Journal. Confusion in Nepal after China unilaterally places projects under Belt and Road Initiative. So Kathmandu, China's statement that the Pokhara International Airport is its flagship project in Nepal under the Belt and Road Initiative came as a surprise. Since then, confusion has gripped Nepal's diplomatic circle after China is unilaterally listing one project after another in Nepal under the Belt and Road Initiative. They're basically just saying, well, we invested in this, so it's ours now. You want to talk about imperialism and expansionism? China's doing what England did in the 1800s, the US did in the 1900s, and, during Pax Americana. The French have done it during their colonial period. You just go to another country that can't fight back and claim their shit. While addressing the House of Representatives on July 3rd, Nepal's foreign minister said that the project implementation plan of the BRI is at a stage of discussion between Nepal and China. Not a single project in Nepal under the BRI has been executed. The project implementation plan of the BRI is still under consideration. So China, Nepal's leaders are saying, we haven't started the project yet, so you don't own shit. And China's saying, no, your airport belongs to us in some way, shape, or form. And this is concerning. The verbiage that's being used is a precursor to taking action, right? It's the same thing as, Russia's doing war games, and they kept massing troops, backing up, massing troops, backing up. We all knew eventually they were going to go over the border. But people kept saying, no, it's just an exercise, until it wasn't. These kind of things are concerning because you have a very aggressive country in Asia with a lot of resources, a lot of money, and a lot of manpower, a lot of people power, and a destabilized Europe, a completely destabilized Africa. And then in Pakistan, according to U.S. News and World Report, officials in Pakistan say the death toll from 2 weeks of monsoons rose to 55. Those monsoons are also hurting Pakistan and Afghanistan's agriculture. Now, granted, a lot of heroin comes from Afghanistan, so it's kind of a mixed blessing there. But this is concerning. There's a lot of food and instability blamed on climate change, but the climate's always changing. That's a natural phenomenon. Now, there's a solar component, I guess you could call a cosmic or planetary component with cosmic rays, solar radiation, etc. You have a geological and geographical component, and then you have a human component, right? We can't control all 3 or 4 or 5 of the ultimate components. We can control ours. So I'm not saying by any means we should pollute the earth and throw nuclear waste everywhere. That's the opposite of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we have to understand that these climate changes will occur and have occurred before. They'll continue to occur, and they'll occur in the future. There's a lot of speculation that some of the Mayan and Aztec cities fell because of climate change at the time, because they went through a drought, there was a sickness, whatever. So, but to see it almost weaponized to justify going into other countries, to justify putting other countries in debt, is concerning. And speaking of countries in debt, our friends down in Argentina, this article is from, bear with me a second, I'm on my phone here, from Reuters. Argentina is to push their IMS debt payments to the month end. So Argentina, which is now suffering over 115% inflation from this time last year to today, is struggling to make their IMF payments. And again, that puts them indebted to a global finance organization. These kind of things are concerning. We need to pay attention to how these things pan out, because when you have repeated issues with food supply, it causes migration, because people have to eat, they have to feed their kids, and if they think there's a better place somewhere else, they're going to do it. And again, not being ugly about it, if you read The Grapes of Wrath, it was basically about people from Oklahoma and Kansas during the Dust Bowl days and the Great Depression going to California, which was the promised agricultural golden land. This is a natural evolution of humans. But when you have it being weaponized, and now China's looking at these weakened countries and going, I claim your airport, I claim this road. Right now, there are multiple countries in debt in Africa to China and to the IMF as well, and I'm sure to the US, for their infrastructure projects. This kind of stuff leads to anger. It leads to people becoming militant because they feel like their country is being taken from them. And then you see them rise up, or you see them lash out. And hence in Khartoum, you're seeing the civil war. These pieces all fit together. And I may not be explaining it quite right, but you guys kind of get my gist. What concerns me is the repeated harping on climate change, food shortages, and they keep talking about laboratory-raised food, specifically lab-raised meats. Now, I will tell you right now from some reading I've been doing, and I can't confirm this, I want to read a little more into it, but my understanding is the reason they're able to create you don't just conjure cells to make lab meat. The cells come from an animal. Specifically, I'm hearing, and I've heard conflicting reports, some say it's bone marrow from cows themselves, which means you're slaughtering a cow anyway. The other part is it comes from fetal cows, basically stem cell type stuff. And that's how they're getting the cells to replicate the meat that's being printed in these labs, this synthetic meat. Now, I'm not talking about alternatives like soy, like, oat milk, or, soy alternatives, vegetable alternatives. No, I'm talking about synthetic meat. That people are like, oh, we'll have synthetic meat, we're not killing an animal. Actually, you are. That's how you get the baseline cellular structure. These things are concerning. And what bothers me, they're not saying, hey, we're not making enough food, we're using this to make more food faster to feed hungry people. That's not what they're saying. If you listen carefully, what they're saying is, we're going to stop you from having certain types of agriculture, certain types of livestock. We will control the food distribution using our lab processed foods. The verbiage, again, is very important, much like China's verbiage in Nepal. Oh, your airport is part of our Belt and Road Initiative, and Nepal's like, the hell it is. But can Nepal stop China if they say, no, it's ours now? This sounds like an excuse to send some paratroopers there, you know what I'm saying? And again, I'm speculating, but you see the verbiage has value. The verbiage means something. And when the verbiage is not, hey, we just can't produce enough meat, we can't produce enough corn, we're going to use lab to support more production in the hopes of feeding hungry people, that sounds, and you may not agree with that either, but that sounds vastly different from what they actually are saying in the news. They're saying it openly, saying, no, we're going to remove livestock from all of you. We'll control the meat distribution through our lab. To me, that sounds like Snowpiercer, the people in the last car eating the warm bars of protein product. And I won't spoil that movie, but anyway, something to think about, ladies and gentlemen. So speaking of that, this Saturday, I'm going to be at a big farmer's market. They're going to have a massive one. It's almost a county-sized farmer's market in another city. So this is road trip morning for us. And if I can send some good pictures, I will. I'm actually on the hunt for some zucchini and some honey for other recipes and a few other goodies. So I'm gonna see what's out there. If nothing else, I'll go and say hi to people and go talk smack or something to some of my friends who I will inevitably run into. In any case, folks, until next time, God bless, Godspeed. Hope you found this little summary interesting. I didn't go through all of them. There were just a few that really were bugging me, and I wanted to bring them to your attention. Keep an eye on the big picture. It's easy to get lost in, exploding submarines and, hunters taking cocaine again, or whatever you do or don't like. But try to keep a perspective on the larger picture and the way they're saying things. That bothers me. So anyway, y'all take care. God bless. I will see you on the next video. And be careful out there. Pay attention. Bye.